live in about 10 seconds. Is that all right?
Yes, that's fine.
Cool. There's an audio clip at the beginning, just deals with racism, specifically aimed at Asians. And as soon as that's done, I'll bring you on, introduce the program, and we'll be ready to go.
Great.
Right on.
New app available for download on Google Play has some Asian Americans outraged. Take a look at this. It's called Make Me Asian, and it lets users change the way they look by reshaping their eyes or adding Fu Manchu mustaches and rice paddy hats to their picture. Google says it's a fun app that can make you look Chinese, Japanese, or Korean. But Asian American groups say it's offensive and racist. Google tells CNN they will pull the app if it is determined that it violates policies against hate speech. I want to know how that got through in the first place.
I should be clear. I did make a comment that Will had downloaded the app. Will has nothing to do with it. I was teasing Will.
Thank you.
Just to be clear.
You know, we were making the reference of you going to the South during the election campaign,
Right,
putting on
wearing
a
my
cowboy hat, and Will joking with you. That
He thought I might be mocking folks, and I thought, no, I'm just getting into it. Like, I thought that was fun. Will does not want to get baited into this conversation.
Here's what's interesting about this conversation.
You felt I was mocking people wearing Texas Longhorn.
You wore Texas Longhorn t-shirt. That was offensive to me as your friend being an Aggie. But look, I think also there's a difference between whenever these kind of things happen, people say it's racist, and then you say offensive. I think we make a mistake when you go all the way to it's either racist or it's not racist. It could be offensive to some. It could be fun to others. That's the mistake that we make whenever these sort of topics come up.
It might. You're pointing out, Will, that it might just be bad taste.
Yeah.
It might just be bad taste, but I mean, I think the person to table with the most perspective on this is Alina, and Alina, you did say you found it offensive, or did you say racist? In fact, that's Tyrone's point.
I find it offensive. I mean, I find it a bit racist. I think that the bottom line is this: that it plays into stereotypes.
Right.
So you put a rice paddy hat on somebody, a Fu Manchu mustache on somebody. I think it plays into stereotypes.
Fascination.
Okay, so what if the app just changed features?
I was going to say that. What if it gave you features?
Still, I mean, you're still dealing with the stereotypes.
I agree.
Yeah, but here's the deal. You have apps out there that also change their features to say, okay, this is how you're going to look as an old person.
Right. This is how you're going to look if you're 50 pounds heavier.
Or skinnier.
Right.
So
I think I would have less of a problem with that. I think I'd have less of a problem.
There is a Make Me Indian
but
app
it still
out there
makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest with you. Yeah.
The assumption is, that there are certain characteristics that make you look X. Now, if you're talking about older, I mean, everybody kind of goes through that.
There are characteristics that make you look black or Asian.
So how about this here? So when you get the Michael Jackson black or white video,
not everyone fits that.
No, Michael Jackson had a video black or white, where literally there are people who are white, and then their faces, they sort of had this mixed in the black. Question, is that offensive?
Right.
That's all right. I'm just curious.
That's an interesting conversation. All right, we're undecided. The jury will be back on this one later.
Unmuted.
Context of white supremacy. Justice Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Wednesday, December 4th, 2013. So I have been told we will be back on Friday. Last installment, our study session on 12 Years a Slave, Solomon Northup, his autobiography as told to David Wilson, currently in the theaters. Told folks it was not going to be very long. The book is not too long. We will be wrapping everything up this week. So if you have seen the film, if you've been following along, if you have some final thoughts that you want to get in on the text, this Friday is your chance. We'll be back at the regular broadcast time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and 5 p.m. Pacific. Tune in Friday. Looking forward to hearing from everyone. Hope everyone was able to keep up with things. We're on an hour later than we normally are. I know some folks, they were caught a little bit off guard. They were expecting us to be here a little while ago, but we started an hour late. Hopefully that will not impact the constructive value of the broadcast. The sound clip that you heard at the beginning, just from earlier this year, and there were quite a few examples that I could have chosen just from this year alone with regards to racism, white supremacy being directed specifically at individuals who are classified as Asian in this area of the world. I think we talked about that a while back. They had the app Make Me Asian, in my view, blatantly racist. I was also thinking I was going to go, they just had the anchor, I think Julie Chen, might be inaccurate with the name, but she just did the segment. This was much more recent, where she was talking about how she was told that she would not go very far in her broadcasting career because she looks too Asian, and how that impacted her to having eye surgery and all of that. Another example of how racism, white supremacy impacts non-white people. One of our listeners, he messaged me on Twitter just earlier, I think towards the end of November, and he said it would be so helpful if we could get more non-white people, specifically he was saying Asian people, learning about, interested in fighting against racism, white supremacy, tuning into this program and or other programs that offer information on what racism is, how it works, the best way to go about attempting to replace the current system of racism, white supremacy, with a system of justice. And he forwarded me a few of the videos from our guest for today's program where he was talking about racism. No surprise there. If you are a non-white person, it's definitely going to be a problem for you. But I thought it would be grand. We could get him on the program and talk about his experiences, break down some of the subjects that he brings up in his various videos, and just exchange views. I always think it's great for different groups of non-white people to exchange views, their observations, experiences, and suggestions on ways to neutralize individuals who practice racism. Our guest, he's joining us live from the area of the world known as Chicago, Illinois. He is an instructor, manages his own business, teaching fitness, self-defense, meditation, and Zen martial arts. He is a big proponent of balance, spiritual, mental, physical balance, and well-being, in addition to providing instructions for overall health and well-being. He has written books and taken time to address racism. You can visit his YouTube channel, put it up on my Facebook page. I'll also tweet it out as well, so you can see some of his content. In addition to talking about racism, he also offers tips on healthy nutrition and stretching and various aspects to do with his business, as I said, in fitness, self-defense, well-being. Real pleasure to have him on the program, hear more of his views. Joining us live, our guest, Mr. Freddie Lee. Mr. Lee, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Outstanding. So glad to have you in the house this evening. Glad you could share a bit of your Wednesday evening for folks. Maybe they have not visited the YouTube channel yet. If you could tell them any information you think would be helpful for them to know about you and the work that you do.
Well, I focus, basically, I'm a martial arts instructor. That's what I mainly focus on. But I do a lot of concentration on fitness because martial arts is like a higher development than just basic fitness. It incorporates a lot of spiritual growth as well, and also combative training. And basically, it's like it's like turning a regular human being almost into like a superhuman being. And really, there's a lot of training involved. And just basically in this type of culture, they're not really ready for that type of training. So I end up focusing a lot on the fitness because people generally have just the time for that. So I do a lot of the fitness training. And then when it comes to the YouTube channel, that's my time to be creative and expressive, to basically just put anything else out, anything out there that I want to basically, in a way, try to give feedback better the world in a positive way. That's why I make videos about racism, because this is something that needs to be spoken about, and people need to learn about it, and they need to hear the truth about it. And really, a lot of times, you're not going to hear the truth in mass media. You know, it's just sometimes the truth is just too hard to handle. And when I make videos on things like racism and all the other things that I see that are corrupted in this society, you know, I'm very blunt with what I have to say, and I have a lot of controversial videos. I mean, even just tonight, somebody called my home, and my wife told me, and the person was complaining about a video I put out there about the death of Paul Walker. You know, and a lot of people call me and complain about the things I say, you know, criticizing MMA, mixed martial arts. So there's a lot of criticism coming my way, but I think that the truth needs to be told. And, you know, some inspirations that I have are, you know, like Malcolm X, Tupac Shakur, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They did a very good job of just expressing the truth. But at the same time, you notice that they're all been assassinated. You know, so there's kind of like a fine line between, like, you know, fame and like being truthful. And what I like about what I do is, because I'm underground and relatively not too well known, I'm able to be very truthful with what I say. You know, and I'm glad to be on this show to basically, you know, be truthful about racism, because I see it from many different angles. Because my background, you know, I am Chinese American. I was born here in Chicago, and I've suffered a lot of racism throughout my life. But at the same time, I grew up around, you know, a lot of African Americans, and I basically have a lot of friends that are African American, and I hung out with them a lot, and I'm really into that culture, and I almost feel like I'm black inside. So it's like I'm Chinese on the outside, but inside I feel like I'm black. And then when people are racist towards blacks, it hurts me just as much as them being racist towards Chinese. So it's like I have a dynamic understanding of this racism, and it's really good to speak about it, because I think people need to hear it.
Huh. Fascinating. It would be great to give more information. I encourage folks who are listening in, if you have questions, feel free, dial in the number 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943 pound. Press *6 if you have questions. I'll be sure to give out the number a few more times as we roll. You already shared, I guess you said you Chinese American, so you are a non-white male, Chinese American specifically. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. You've mentioned many of your videos, and folks can visit the YouTube channel, FREDDIE'S Modern Kung Fu YouTube channel, FREDDIE'S Modern Kung Fu. You mentioned racism in many of your videos and a few times already during the broadcast. What is your definition of racism?
Well, my definition of racism is basically somebody that is, you know, disrespecting and viewing themselves to be, you know, superior over another human being simply because of their skin color. You know, like nothing more but than just that. That's pretty much what I view racism to be, like just a white person that thinks he's better than a black person just because he's white, or better than an Asian person just because he's white. It's almost like a superiority complex that they have, that they're born to be superior. Kind of like people, I mean, I think a lot of people could relate, because, you know, like people that live in America think that they're, you know, a lot of times they're very spoiled in America, and they feel like, you know, we're better because we're born in America. We're better than people in China. We're better than people in Africa. You know, so that's part of racism. Or people that think that their language is better than another language. You know, like, then they poke fun of the way Chinese people talk, because to them it sounds funny, and they like to make fun of that. That's being racist. You know, thinking, you know, Chinese people will look different than a white person. So a Chinese person might have a different texture of hair. So if a person starts making fun of Chinese person's hair in a way that could be perceived as racist. Or like, you know, a white person that makes fun of a black person's hair because his texture of his hair is different. He was born that way. That's a part of racism. And people don't really understand that. They think, oh, you know, I'm just making fun of their hair. But no, I think it goes deeper than that. You know, just the way that the Chinese person looks different than a black person, looks different than a white person. And just making fun of those physical features is a part of racism. Making fun of the way that they speak, as far as their language, is a part of racism. Even making fun of the, maybe the way that they dress. There's maybe like traditional Chinese ways of dressing, and then they making fun of that. That's a part of racism. Basically, like putting down other cultures is a part of racism. And it's not just about the skin color to me. It's about like not accepting other cultures, not being open to other cultures, and just basically it's a lot of bullying, a lot of poking fun at a way. Also like making fun of a person's accent. Somebody's Polish and they're trying to speak English and they got a certain accent. Once you start making fun of that accent, to me that's a part of racism. Because now you feel that everybody has to speak exactly the way that you speak. And when they don't speak like you make fun of that, and that's part of racism. Racism to me is very dynamic. It goes beyond just the simple skin color, but there's a lot of things involved with it that makes it very difficult to combat, because we're talking about racism in a capitalistic society that promotes like competition amongst human beings. And in a way, racism is an extension of competition. So say there's a white person that might not be as smart as a Chinese person. He might have got a lower ACT score. So then he gets jealous and he says, okay, I might not be as smart as you, but I'll make fun of you because you're Chinese and I'm better than you because I'm white. So I'll make fun of the way that you talk. I'll make fun of the way that you look. I'll make fun of you because you're not as tall as me. And they'll attack the Chinese person as much as they possibly can because they feel jealousy with other areas of development that they feel that they are in lack of. And that basically is one of the hugest problems. And then you got the law that tries to step in and says, let's make it against the law for people to, discriminate people based on race. But there's no laws against like discriminating people against height or weight. So people will, they know that they can't make fun of somebody's race because then that's a taboo thing and that's something that's not accepted by society. So what they'll do is start making fun of, people being fat, people being short, people being anorexic looking. They'll make fun of whatever they can that's not protected by law. And basically, essentially, the main problem is this superiority complex, this complex that we feel that we're better than other human beings just because. And racism is basically a very hurtful thing because people are born with a certain skin color and they can't really change that. So that's one of the things about racism that makes it more difficult.
Do you think it's possible for a non-white person to practice racism against a white person?
Yes.
How would a non-white person practice racism against a white person? And then can you think of some specific examples where non-white people have practiced racism against white people?
So a non-white person practicing racism against a white person is just basically having just pure hatred towards the whites. In a way, it's almost like, when Malcolm X first started out, it's almost like he redirected the racism towards the whites at the beginning, until he went to Mecca, and then he realized that, hey, that's not the right way to do it, because there are white people out there that basically are not racist and that are good people. Like basically, it's easier to attack an opponent when you know exactly who the opponent is. So if it's black against white, it's easier for the blacks to turn against all the whites and be like, you guys are evil and we need to rebel. But it's not so clear cut, because there's white people that actually support the black people more than they support their own race. And then there's black people I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You said there are white people that support black people more than they support their own race. That would be other white people. Is that what you said? Yes. I've met people like that, where they're actually they're so engulfed into the black culture, that they fight in the struggle with the blacks. So a famous person now, use an example, is someone like John Lennon. He was fighting for equality. He was fighting for peace in the Vietnam. He didn't want no Vietnam War. So and his wife was even an Asian woman. So in a way, he's fighting for the Asians' rights. He didn't want the Vietnam War. So even Muhammad Ali is you know what? I'm not going to Vietnam. They didn't do nothing wrong to me. You know, they didn't do nothing to me, so I'm not going to Vietnam War. In a way, he was standing up for the Vietnamese. You know, and there are white people out there that actually do see what's going on, and they want to basically try to help fix the problem. There's not that many of them, but they are out there.
Oh, okay, hang on 1 second. That huge right there off the bat, regardless of, you know, your next response, that there are not that many of these people anyway. But the few number that you think are there, you said John Lennon. You said he was one example. I didn't hear anything specific that you named that he did specifically to support black people. You said he married an Asian female, which I think that's true. You said that he spoke out against the Vietnam War. I don't really see how that's, you know, doing something specifically to help black people. And you said that there are white people who support black people more than they support white people. I still haven't really heard any evidence or specific example of a white person doing something to help out black people and helping black people more than they help out white people. Do you have like a modern day example of a white person like this who's still alive, and specifically what they're doing to help black people or non-white people in general?
Well, like, there's people that I've encountered in my life. Now, I'm using John Lennon as an example because if he could do it for Asian, he could obviously do it. There's somebody out there that can obviously do it for another race. So there's that possibility. And also, like, an example, I don't know too much about him, but someone like Eminem. He's so into the black culture that basically just being a part of that rap game is already like almost turning toward against his own race. Because that's not what the white people enjoy doing. But he's so into it that it's like he's not even black. I mean, he's not even white. He's like black on the inside, white on the outside. So I'll use myself as an example. I used to be a police officer, and I would actually see racial profiling going around where police officers were racially profiling black people. And I'm not black, but I felt that was wrong. And I felt that, you know what, this is wrong. And I wanna stand up for the blacks. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not right. You know, and basically, I'm not white, I'm Chinese, but, you know, basically what I'm saying is that there's always that potential in a human being to see what the problem is and be like, I don't want to contribute to that problem. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
I definitely want, because you have some YouTube videos where you talk about your experience as a police officer, and I want to talk about that because you talk about how you yourself were a victim of racism while you were working, and seeing how black people were also being victims of racism. But just this is an important point I want to make, because I think many times non-white people that I've heard, they cut white people some slack, and it's not about hating white people. I think anyone who's listening to my broadcast, I don't preach, jump up and down, and get angry, yelling, talking about hating white people. It's just about trying to be accurate, trying to be precise. The two examples that you gave of white people who you said helping black people more than they help white people, I don't think those are valid examples of the point that you made. Number one, I would say emphatically, a white person marrying a non-white person or being sexually engaged with a non-white person, that to me does not constitute help. There are too many examples for me to name of explicitly racist white people who've had no problem marrying non-white people, even having sexual intercourse with non-white people, producing children with non-white people. So that doesn't mean anything to me at all. In fact, I think that's one of the worst things a white person can do, to get in bed with a non-white person. I think that just promotes racism, has done so for a long, long time. If that was going to solve this problem, we would not be having this discussion. The problem would have been taken care of centuries ago. To the second one, specifically with Eminem, I feel like, if anything, he is a sad continuation of one of the really ugly ways that white people practice racism with regards to appropriating. Really, it's just theft of things that non-white people do. I think they have done this with music over and over and over. Eminem has even talked about this in some of his songs, the fact that he would not be so popular if he were not a white person. With Elvis Presley, same thing, someone who never wrote a single song. All he did was steal music, art forms of black people, theft, and then go out and do it himself, and has this whole monumental career where people call him the king. Same thing with Eminem, where he's now referenced as one of the greatest rap artists of all time. And it's just him being a white person, he can have that sort of stature, he can have that sort of fame, and he's still alive. Not like Tupac or Notorious B.I.G., some of the other people that I hear get named as being greatest of all time, who really stood up and made a stand where, okay, they did that and they're dead, and white people get to make a lot of money after they've been buried. I really have not seen where Eminem has done anything. Yeah, he's made a lot of money. I've heard where he's talked about racism here or there, but I really have not seen where he's done anything specifically to help black people. Maybe he signed a black artist. Maybe he had some help in getting 50 Cent on or some other black musicians. But I have not seen anything where he's made substantial efforts to help black people. Certainly not where I would say, yeah, he's done a lot more to help out black people than other white people. So that would be, and I could be an error. I'm no expert on racism, but I just don't see I can't think of any white person that I would say, yeah, this white person helped out black people more than they've helped out other white people. Modern, dead, anybody. I wouldn't even put John Brown on that list. Is what I just said. Does that make sense, or am I talking crazy?
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying. Really, what it boils down to is just that we have like different life experiences, and when you don't you meet different people than I meet, obviously, and it's just dynamic because you have different life experiences. You meet different people, and I could almost agree that in mass media, there's really not that many famous white people that you would actually see that they're really helping a lot. As far as, for the minorities, but in my life, I've met people, like a white woman, for example, that I was in high school with, where she was very engulfed into, like, the black culture, and she would, like, study, a lot about their, about their culture, and she had a lot of black friends, and she was almost like a black person, but she was just white on the outside. And I've met people like that, in my life, and, I just feel that there's that potential, and that, for example, if a black person, clearly there are a lot of examples in my life where I know that a black person turns against his own race and basically is like whitewashed and basically suppressing the black man. It's like the black police officers out there that are just beating down their own race of people because they're just basically brainwashed and turned into puppets. So some people might even view Barack Obama to be like that. So if that could be the case, then it's obvious that the other way around is also possible as well, where a white person sees like all these things that's wrong with what is going on, and they actually side with the blacks more than they do with the whites. Because for me, that's kind of what happened. Is like when I was like growing up as a little kid, there was like a few white people, making fun of my race, and I wasn't gonna jump onto their team because they're the ones who's making fun of me. So then I was like, I don't want to be, pretty much as a child, I was like, I don't want to be Chinese anymore. So then what I'm gonna do? So then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna side with the blacks. So now I'm gonna basically I want to be black. So then I'm Chinese on the outside, and then now I want to be black. So there are a lot of like white people out there that love the hip hop culture or whatever the case may be, and then it's like they want to be black. They want to be in the struggle. They want to kind of try to live the hard life. There's people out there like that. I know there are because I've met them. And they're not famous, but I know that there's people out there like that. So, go ahead.
I would definitely agree with that. I think I've met some white people. I think we've even had a few on the program who said that they wanted to be black. J. Love Calderon, white female, comes to mind. Excuse me. Who said that they want to be black. But again, it would go back, just trying to be precise about the question, that she did not share anything with me that revealed that she has done more to help out black people than white people. Listening to a lot of black musicians or wearing clothing that is associated with black people, talking in a manner that is associated, stereotyped to be the way that black people talk, all of those things, that does not offer any tangible benefits to black people. And to me, it's certainly not evidence of you helping black people out more than white people. But
I mean, in a way, in my opinion, though, if a white person buys like 1,000 CDs that are all black artists, they're helping the black entertainment industry. If a white person's like watching all black movies that are made by black directors, they're helping the business grow. So I mean, that's like feeding into the black community. A white person goes into a Jamaican restaurant, spends all their money in the Jamaican restaurant, they're helping that business grow. You know, they go into the black community and they spend their money in the black community, it's helping the business grow. You know, so where they spend their money is important.
Absolutely. Where you spend your money, what you spend your money on, absolutely, it is important. I wanted to get, if you could share about your experience with a police officer. I think it's important, particularly with regards to entertainment. And really, for me, it goes back to my definition of racism, which I didn't share. We have a different definition of racism, so I think that's going to probably impact how we see things, where we might have slight differences here or there through the course of the conversation. I'll just give my definition of racism really quick. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. That's my definition, and I use the term racism and white supremacy as synonyms, meaning the same thing. According to my definition of racism, it is not possible for a non-white person to practice racism. I'm a black male. It is not possible for me to practice racism. You are a non-white male, Chinese American specifically. According to me, it would not be possible for you to practice racism. And I say that because we'll take entertainment, since you just brought that up. You were saying a white person, if they go out and buy 1,000, if they buy 1,000 Nas CDs or Jay-Z CDs, Lil Wayne CDs, Drake CDs, that is supporting the black community. I do not agree. And I think the evidence shows that people who get the most money off of the sales of those albums, Kanye West, Nicki Minaj, whomever it is white people. And I think many of those artists have said this. Many of them publicly have said this on various songs, interviews. The people who make the most money are white people. In fact, there was just the BBC, they just did a news segment, I think it was Friday it aired, where they were just talking about this, and they were saying that a lot of people would be misled to think, well, oh, you know, we've got Lil Wayne now, we've got Nicki Minaj now, and these people, they're making lots of money and selling all these albums all over the world, and you really have to do some more digging. I'm not talking about you, but she was just saying in general, people would have to do more digging to see, do they have distribution? Can P. Diddy or Jay-Z, can they get their album out on their own or through other black people all over the world? No, they have to go through white people. And that's what I mean when we talk about a system of racism, white supremacy. You mentioned films, same thing. You go see a black film, not even that there are that many of those, but black directed film, black cast, black script, all that. White people still are going to make the most money off of that because we're in a system of racism, white supremacy. It's not white people who are struggling, who are making complaints that black people are keeping them from getting housing or jobs or any of that. It's non-white people who have those complaints about white people being in charge and controlling everything worldwide, having this complaint that white people have a disproportionate amount of power with regards to determining what's going to happen anywhere on the planet. And I think that's very important to kind of keep that front and center whenever there are discussions on racism, determining who is a racist, and determining, whether or not a white person, if they're being helpful, if they're doing things to try to help out, whether it's buying CDs or whatever the case may be. I just think it's very important to keep that power differential at the forefront of the conversation with regards to white people having way more power than non-white people, way more control of resources, and even a lot of times when things appear as though a black person is in charge, even in the case of the White House, it's white people that are really in charge. It's white people that are allowing all this to happen. It's white people that are calling the shots. I submit I could be in error, but I hope that's something people will think about as we roll through the program. In fact, I think where I want to go next, I wanted you to share. You said that you worked as a police officer in the Chicago area. I wanted you to talk about that experience a little bit. What was it like? What were the demographics? Like, how many white officers were there? How many non-white officers? How many black officers? The racism that you experienced, racism that you saw happening to other people. If you could kind of give us some of the background on that, I think that might even be another example of what I'm talking about how white people are always in charge of what's going on.
Okay, so I was a police officer at Northwestern University, and I went to the police academy in Chicago and everything. When I first got hired, the job was great. I loved the job and everything. I got into the force, and basically most of the officers there were white. The force maybe had like 30 officers, and I'd say maybe like 20 of them were white, and you might have like 7 African Americans, and then maybe like 1 or 2 Asians, a few Hispanics. So it's like mainly whites, but it did have some blacks, some Hispanics, a couple of Asians, and basically I was working. The chief of police was actually black, and then the person below him was white, and then it was basically the assistant chief was white, and then the commander, which is below the assistant chief, was black. Now there was a history of racism within that police, within that department, like a long history. And the blacks had to fight really hard to get in those positions of supervisory positions. They had to go through a lot of like racism from the white officers over there that are suppressing them. And there was like a lot of like racism between the whites and the blacks before I got there. There was 2 like locations, one in Chicago, one in Evanston, and they would pretty much just throw all the black officers in the Chicago location and keep all the white officers in the Evanston location to separate them. And there was like a lot of like racism going on in the history where, things were being said. One of the officers got called like the N-word by a supervisor. He filed a complaint, and then he ended up like getting some money out of it. And there was just like other things that happened, where there's a lot of tension involved. And I was basically the second Asian officer to ever be hired. There's one Asian officer that was hired before me, and then I was the second one to be hired. So when I first got in there, everything seemed to be great. I loved the job, but then, comments would be thrown my way like every so often. I worked there for 4 years, and through a period of time, people were saying certain things to me. There was like a white supervisor that said to me on several occasions, he was walking into the locker room. He was like shouting out, "Oh, those fucking chinks, those goddamn chinks! I can't stand those fucking chinks." He said that shit like at least a couple times. So that happened, and then there was another white officer that ended up saying like a couple times, like making fun of things, with the Chinese saying like ching chong, stuff like that. And then like I had a white supervisor, was making fun of the way that my hair looked. And then, there's another white officer that was like saying stuff like that, making fun of me, saying that I looked like a baseball player called like Fudamoki from the Cubs. And then he would like talk about that and make everybody laugh at me and stuff like that. And, there's one time where he just basically was standing next to another Asian officer, and then I walk into the room, and then he looks at me and he says, "Oh, there goes another one of them." And then basically I just suffered a lot of like, types of things like this. And then I ended up complaining about it, to try to make it stop. I didn't really complain like to the supervisors. All I did was I just emailed the people that were saying like these disrespectful things to me. I just emailed them and told them the stuff that they said, and said, that I don't appreciate it. I want you guys to stop. And then one of the officers gave that that email to the supervisor. And then basically the supervisor approached me and, said what I want to do with it. And I said, I just wanted them to stop. But then since the supervisor found out, I was like, what am I going to do now? So then I felt that my job was going to be in jeopardy, because now they were upset at me because the supervisor found out. So I decided, you know what, I might as well just go to the human resource with the whole thing and see if they can help the situation. So we went to human resources, and it just basically, it just got worse from there. I mean, they didn't help in any way. I mean, they just basically, they almost pretty much made it worse. And it just kept escalating and escalating, and then the point where we just stopped talking to each other. I just went to work and I wouldn't talk to anybody. Like, the only officers that would talk to me were like the black officers, and a lot of the white officers wouldn't even talk to me, and it was just a lot of tension. But I just kept going to work, trying to stay happy, and then eventually one day I went to work, and then I had like 3 pairs of shoes like by my locker, and somebody threw all my shoes like all over the room. And then it was like all over the room, you know, my shoes were everywhere, and I was upset. I was like, you know what? Like, I felt that one of these guys that were saying all this racial stuff to me, they threw my shoes everywhere. So I complained again. And then I complained again, and then all of a sudden they pretty much like, they put me on leave, and they're saying, you know, that, you know, I'm at fault. They're trying to accuse me of being at fault, and it's just like, it just went, you know, it just went downhill from there. You know, that I contacted the Chicago Tribune, and they interviewed me, and then they made an article about what happened to me, and then I had to go, you know, they ended up wrongfully terminating me, and then I had to, I filed a lawsuit, and the lawsuit didn't go my way because they just had too much money. They hired like some really high-priced attorneys to fight the case, and my attorney didn't really have that much experience, and, you know, I didn't really get anything. I didn't get nothing out of it. You know, I spent like thousands of dollars to fight against it, but, you know, in the end, I didn't get any money out of it or nothing, and basically I lost the job. And then that's when I had to figure out something else to do, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. You know, and also when I was, you know, when I was employed, you know, I would see like the different treatment, you know, between the whites and the blacks, and, you know, there's certain white officers that would basically like wait, you know, but pull over blacks and just like give the blacks, you know, speeding tickets or like traffic tickets, and they would like arrest the black person for like basically finding a phone. They'd arrest the black person, but then a white person does a felony and they let the white person go. You know what I mean? They'll be just doing stuff like that. It's just like crazy. You know, it's just a lot of like unequal treatment and favoritism over there. And, you know, like, you know, they'll be pulling over people like that are known, like football players, you know, for the university, and they'll always let them go, but then they'll pull over a black person and they'll write them up. You know, it's just like seeing stuff like that, you know, it just kind of like really disappointed me, and I didn't want to be a part of that. I mean, I didn't want to contribute to that, but, you know, it's just something that, you know, seeing it happen, and then experiencing those things that I did, it just changed my whole life perspectives on a lot of different things, you know. And when the whole thing happened, I lost my job and everything. You know, nobody was really there to help me, because there wasn't that many Asian officers, and the blacks were, they didn't want to lose their jobs, and there was somebody that sent me like an anonymous letter to like try to help me, but basically, you know, I was on my own, and I didn't really get much support. And even the person in the EEOC mentioned that, you know, if I was black, you know, they would be able to do something more, but since I'm Asian, they can't really do much, because basically, you know, this is what we got to deal with. If we don't really have much support. If you're an Asian person, when it comes to racism, you don't really have much support. But I see that the blacks, they have more support. You know, things are taken more seriously. You know what I mean? What that one black person, you know, black officer got called the N-word, and all of a sudden they paid him out money right away. But when it came to me, they're calling me all this different stuff, and then I'm the one that gets fired. You know, it's just ridiculous. So that's pretty much what happened.
I had 2 quick questions. Thank you for sharing. That right there, major reason every Saturday, compensatory call-in, the last hour, workplace racism. I've said consistently, I think it is impossible to get 5 non-white people together and nobody has a problem with racism on the job. Everyone is being treated correctly. I just do not believe that. Every Saturday, last hour of the program, workplace racism, because I think many people, too many people, they have the exact same experience that you just shared, being on the job, being terrorized by whites, and having no resources, no help, and feeling all alone and helpless and trying to deal with it and frustrated. The two quick questions. Number one, going back to what you said earlier, were there any of these white people who were willing to stand up and help you even more than they were willing to help out their own white race? Did any white people step to the forefront and say, hey, Mr. Lee, this is totally wrong. You're a victim here, and I want to do everything that I can to help out?
I mean, the quick answer to that is no, but you know, they just have that like automated like fake response, like, oh, you know, but yeah, it's no. I mean, the assistant chief was a white guy, and he's like acting as if, you know, he's on my side, but really he was there to protect his people. You know, under just basically using, they're just required to act as if they're trying to help, but they're not helping. They're actually like finding ways to get rid of you. You know, because basically you either have to put up with it or you get out. That's pretty much the options you have. You can't. There's no way that you could win. I mean, it would have been better if they're just straightforward with me and said, you know what, if you keep complaining like this, you're gonna get fired. Just stop complaining. Just put up with it. You know, if they would have just said that, it would have been fine. But they're just like acting as if, oh, you know, we're gonna make things better, and these are your rights, and here's the HR, this is here to help you.